The Chhalawa wanders that road at night. It's a remarkably simple yet absolutely chilling warning from the folklore text we're diving into today. When you hear a phrase like that spoken with this trembling sincerity by a local who actually knows the land, your first instinct should probably be to listen. But, well, human nature's kind of a funny thing, isn't it? We often think our modern logic can somehow outsmart ancient fears.
So ask yourself this: what actually happens when you ignore the frantic warnings of the locals? Just imagine being stranded in the pitch black, miles and miles away from civilization, entirely because of your own stubbornness. You've totally dismissed the myths, you've ignored all the pleas, and now the darkness is closing in.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be breaking down a genuinely terrifying folklore account of a doomed road trip to the Konkan district in Maharashtra. We're going to dissect exactly how a pretty mundane relocation turned into an absolute nightmare and uncover the psychological and supernatural terror of the Chhalawa.
All right, part one, a risky night journey.
Okay, so before we get into the weeds, we have to understand the actual threat here. According to the folklore in our source, the Chhalawa isn't just your standard ghost. It's an illusionary supernatural entity. Its main weapon? Deception. It literally mimics reality to trap and prey on lonely travelers. So when the hired truck driver frantically tried to warn Manoj about this specific entity, he wasn't warning him about a quick jump scare. No, he was warning him about a predator that alters your very perception of the physical world.
It all starts with a classic snowball effect, where a series of seemingly small inconveniences creates the perfect storm. At 4 p.m., the loading of their belongings gets severely delayed. The driver, knowing full well it's an 8 to 9 hour journey to Konkan, practically begs to wait until morning. Manoj refuses. By 7 p.m., they're about 3 hours in. Darkness is falling fast, and the driver and his helper, Chotu, are visibly terrified. Finally, by 10 p.m., hunger forces them to pull over at this completely desolate roadside eatery, or dhaba.
And this right here perfectly illustrates the central conflict. On one side, you have Manoj's modern skepticism. He's thinking, ghosts are nonsense, I have work tomorrow. He just views the delay as an attack on his professional schedule, right? But on the flip side, we have the raw, visceral terror of the locals saying, the Chhalawa will take you. The dramatic irony here is heavy. Manoj's arrogance is completely blinding him to a very real ancient danger lurking just ahead on the road.
Moving on to part two, the eerie dhaba warnings. So they pull up, and let's just review the incredibly unsettling signs they encounter. First off, the dhaba is completely empty. The owners explicitly state that literally no one travels this road at night, and they practically beg the group to stay at their guest house. Manoj, being Manoj, just accuses them of wanting a commission. Then Anu spills food on her clothes and heads to the dark bathroom out back. She hears mysterious footsteps right behind her, only to get a massive jump scare from a cat. Her nerves are totally frayed at this point, but here is the most critical detail you need to remember. The truck driver excuses himself to the bathroom and disappears into the dark for 5 whole minutes. Keep that in mind.
Which brings us to part 3, the silent wedding procession.
Ignoring absolutely every red flag, Manoj forces the group back into the truck. And man, this is where the illusions escalate so rapidly. First, Anu screams. She sees a bloodied man standing on the road, but before they can even stop the help, he just vanishes. Instantly. The driver is panicking now, screaming that the Chhalawa is upon them. Manoj, still dismissive. To appease Anu, he tells her to just close her eyes. But then, a completely bizarre sight blocks the road. It's a wedding procession, a barat. People are all dressed up, but it is utterly, completely silent. No music, no drums, nothing. The helper, Chotu, remembers the folklore says the Chhalawa often takes the form of a barat, and he screams to reverse. The driver throws the truck in reverse, glances in the rearview mirror, and sees the exact same silent procession directly behind them. They are completely boxed in by an impossible reality.
All right, part 4, trapped in a loop.
The panic inside the cab reaches an absolute fever pitch. The driver slams on the gas, pushing this truck to full speed just trying to break through. But as they drive, this dreadful realization washes over them. They fly past a water stand, a piao, and the sign reads Konkan 2 hours away. The sheer terror sets in because this is the exact same landmark they passed shortly after leaving the dhaba. Despite driving at top speed for what felt like forever, they hadn't made a single inch of progress. The Chhalawa has trapped them in a spatial loop.
And just when you think it can't get worse, the ultimate disaster strikes. The truck violently breaks down.
And it doesn't just stall out. The driver actually notes that it felt like it stopped itself. Sitting in that dark cab basically makes them sitting ducks. So they spot this faint lantern light off in the nearby bushes and just make a run for it. They find this small, super claustrophobic abandoned house with a door they can actually lock from the inside. Inside, just a dim lantern and 2 small beds.
Now for Part 5, the Chhalawa revealed.
They lock themselves in, completely exhausted and utterly terrified. Anu and Manoj take one bed, the driver and Chodu take the other. Somehow, they actually manage to drift off to sleep. But the silence is suddenly shattered by the sound of a glass falling. Anu wakes up in the pitch dark, rubs her eyes, looks toward the noise, and lets out a blood-curdling scream. Chodu, the young helper, is lying dead on the floor. His neck has been brutally torn open, the flesh completely ripped apart. The sheer violence of it startles Manoj and the driver awake. Okay, let's actually just pause for a second right here. Who killed Chotu? The door is still locked from the inside. Nobody broke in. That means the killer is in the room. The Chhalawa is in the room. In a split second, every single survivor in that cramped, dark little space becomes a prime suspect.
Trust breaks down literally in seconds. The driver immediately points the finger at Anu. His logic? Well, she was the first one to see the bloody man on the road, and crucially, she was the first one to go alone into the dark bathroom back at the dhaba. But Anu fiercely defends herself, firing back that the driver also disappeared into the dark, entirely alone for 5 minutes. The paranoia just boils over into horrific violence. The driver grabs a stick, lunges at Anu, and screams that she's the Chhalawa. Manoj tries to intervene and takes a brutal hit to the head, blood just pouring down his face.
And this brings us to the most chilling revelation of the entire account. As the driver bends down to pick up the stick for another strike, Manoj, clutching his bleeding head, happens to look down at a small mirror resting on the ground. The driver had no reflection. Just imagine the absolute horror of that realization. The entity mimicking reality. The real driver never actually came back from the dark at that dhaba. The thing swinging the stick in the room with them, that was the Chhalawa. Operating on pure, unfiltered adrenaline, Manoj makes a move. He grabs a heavy water pot and smashes it directly onto the Chhalawa's head. Stunned, the creature drops the stick. Manoj grabs Anu's hand and they just sprint blindly out of the house, plunging into the wilderness. Honestly, their only saving grace here is timing. The first rays of the morning sun finally break over the horizon, which strips the entity of its power to pursue them. Stumbling onto the main road in the daylight, they managed to flag down a passing bus, leaving the nightmare and the bodies behind them.
So what is the ultimate takeaway we can glean from this folklore? It's really about the tragic cost of arrogance. Yes, Manoj and Anu physically survived the night, but Chotu and the original truck driver paid with their lives, entirely because their earnest warnings were completely dismissed as uneducated nonsense. It's a pretty harsh reminder from the folklore that ancient warnings usually exist for a very good reason, and ignoring local knowledge can come with a deadly price.
Which leaves us with this one final thought to close out today's explainer. The source text warns that the Chhalawa isn't just a spooky campfire story. Once it targets someone, it doesn't leave empty-handed. So the next time you find yourself kind of dismissing a local legend or insisting on pushing through the dark just to save a couple of hours on a road trip, ask yourself, what if the Chhalawa is waiting on your next lonely midnight drive? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and hey, stay safe out there.